Hey guys, welcome to the world of aquariums. Today's video will be talking about a very unique freshwater shrimp, Sulawesi shrimps. I've done a lot of research and kept Sulawesi shrimps for a while now, and as a result, I have some tips for people who want to keep them successfully. These shrimps are definitely a lot harder to keep than your typical cherry or crystal shrimp, and I would strongly suggest getting some experience in those shrimps before starting a tank of these. But before we go on to the 7 tips for keeping Sulawesi shrimps, we must first know what are the main issues that most people come across when keeping them. The 2 main issues I have come across are having stable and correct water parameters and also having enough food for them. Starting with stable and correct water parameters, the parameters you want for your Sulawesi shrimp is temperatures of 27 to 30 degrees Celsius, pH between 7.5 and 8.5, GH between 6 to 10 degrees, KH between 6 and 9, and generally a TDS at a range of 150 to 250 parts per million. For our first tip, it is to use inert decorations and substrates, or ones that are only slight buffering. This is because you want to let the water you use be the thing that gives the aquarium the correct parameters and not let it change through the substrate or decoration. The main reason for this is that it is much easier to control the waters through the use of mineralizers compared to hard water buffering substrates and decorations. For example, coral sand will help increase your pH to around 8, but at the same time it will buffer your GH and TDS too much, and this is hard to control. I personally use Seachem Onyx sand because I had some spare and it will only slightly buffer your water after a good wash. Our second tip to get the correct parameters is to use RODI water plus Sulawesi shrimp mineralizers to set its pH and other parameters. You can make RODI or distilled water through using our RODI unit or buy it from most fish stores. The reason I suggest this is that you can freely control what mineralizers and levels you want your water parameters to be sitting at, and in a lot of cases, tap water parameters are not suitable. I personally use Salty Shrimp Sulawesi 8.5 mineralizer, and this is what I found best for water changes and filling up the tank. However, if you do choose to use this mineralizer, it is very hard to dissolve, and personally I have found that bubbling CO2 for a few days is the only way to dissolve it fully. Salty Shrimp 7.5 will also work well and dissolve a lot easier, but I prefer the higher pH salt for the shrimp, as the 7.5 salt may not get your pH high enough sometimes. Moving on to our third and probably the most important tip for current keepers, it is to not only use RODI water to top off. Using RODI water to top off your shrimp tanks works well for Neocaridina and Caridina shrimp, and is also what has been suggested for Sulawesi shrimp for a while now. But the main problem I found was using RODI water only to top off is that RODI water has a pH lower than 7 due to dissolving carbonic acids. As a result, using this to top off your high pH aquarium will mean that the pH will decrease each time and the parameters will not be as stable. Fixing this is very simple, and this is to simply add pH buffer to increase the pH of the RODI water. The one I am using, which I highly recommend, is Seachem Tanganyika buffer, as this is a very strong pH buffer for aquariums. You only have to add a tiny bit into your RODI water so that the water is sitting at around pH 8 and not below 7. Adding this buffer will slightly increase your KH by a bit, which is fine. Your GH will also not be affected, and TDS will only increase by a very small amount, roughly 10 parts per million. Because of this, your pH will stay more constant, and overall, so will your tank parameters, which is always a good thing. Our fourth and final tip for keeping your parameters stable is very simple, and this is to use a lid or to just cover the top of your aquarium with cling wrap. Sulawesi shrimp tanks have high temperatures of around 28 degrees Celsius, meaning there will be a lot of evaporation happening. As a result, covering the top of your aquarium will mean that the evaporated water will condense back into your aquarium, and so you will not have to fill up as much. Moving on to tips for our second main problem, it is supplying enough food for the shrimps. Unlike Caridina or Neocaridina shrimps, these shrimps may not eat shrimp pellets and other food straight away. As a result, a lot of people will have their shrimp starve to death as there just isn't enough food in the tank for them. Making sure there is adequate food begins with the initial tank setup, as their main diet will be biofilm and they will be constantly grazing over this. Our fifth tip will be growing the biofilm and algae for the shrimp. The most important way to do this is to make sure your tank has matured for a long period of time. Even if your tank has fully cycled, I would still run the tank for at least 8 weeks altogether before adding the shrimp. This makes sure that there will be lots of biofilm for them to eat when you first introduce them so that they won't starve. During this long period of time, a lot of people will also grow algae for these shrimp. Although algae is not essential, I personally like it for the green algae wall looks, and I believe that the algae will provide additional surface area for the biofilm to grow. The main algae types which forms this are green spot algae and dust algae, which generally grows under low phosphate levels and high light. To easily grow them, I keep my lights on for around 18 to 24 hours a day during the cycling process for a few weeks. Every couple of weeks after, I will reduce it slowly until it's on for around 12 hours a day for when I add the shrimps. Our next tip is on how to acclimate your shrimps onto other types of food. It has always been very hard to get Sulawesi shrimps on shrimp pellets and other foods, as they are very finicky and shy. However, I find this to be very important because it means that you have backup food options. Instead of trying to feed them shrimp pellet food straight away, I like to adjust them slowly onto it through using frozen foods and powdered shrimp foods. I would feed my shrimp powdered foods such as Bacta AE on a regular basis in addition to using frozen brine shrimp every few days. After a while, they will become more active when food is placed into the tank and will eventually start feeding on shrimp pellet foods. Personally, this method has worked well for me, but it might still be hard to do on wild shrimp or rarer Sulawesi shrimps. Our seventh and last tip for keeping Sulawesi shrimp is to overfiltrate your water. Instead of just using a sponge filter only, I also put hang-on back filters or canister filters onto my Sulawesi tanks. The main reason I do this is because I feed my shrimps a lot of powdered foods, so the water will gain lots of waste quickly, and overfiltrating will help solve this problem. If you do use these type of filters, you definitely will need a filter guard to prevent the shrimp from being sucked up into the filter. Anyway, this concludes our video on tips to help keep Sulawesi shrimps more successfully. If you do have other questions, please comment below and I will answer them. Anyway, I hope you liked this video and found it very helpful. Thanks for watching.